around 6 years ago I had 2 blood transfusions, both in the same small space of time. And that happening to me was part of a horrible episode in my sort of personal history, where I was very, very, almost critically ill with what was then diagnosed as ulcerative colitis. It's often referred to as the sort of being an invisible condition, because say right now, for instance, you're looking at me now, anyone watching this is looking at me now, but you can't tell that I've got it. You know, I might look a bit pale or a bit tired, but aside from that, you can't really tell that I've got it. So it's very strange to tell the story of that to people. But obviously the blood transfusions played a huge part in that. And it's one of the many things that you never think about, you know, that it's ever going to happen to you. It's the same with, you know, great illnesses or, you know, almost tragic events in your life. You always see it happening to other people. You always see it happening to, you know, people on the television or, you know, in a newspaper or something. So you never ever, you know, visualise yourself lying there on a hospital bed, you know, with blood being pumped into your arm, let alone twice. And but it did happen to me, and obviously there are worse things in the world. There are worse illnesses, full stop. So I've got a lot to be grateful for, you could say, or, you know, there's that factor of it could always have been worse. But it was still a very, very perplexing experience for someone, because I was, you know, fairly young at the time, a young adult, shall we say.
How old were you?
I was 6 years ago, so about 17, 18. I almost spent my 18th birthday in hospital, which wasn't a lot of fun, because especially when, in a social sense and almost a generational sense, I always had this suspicion that everybody else my age was out and about, you know, having, you know, lots of riotous fun and parties and relations and so on. And you know, thinking of everybody else your age is, you know, they're out there living life, you know, they're deciding which universities they're going to go to. They're, you know, Lord knows what, they're having all this fun, you know, they're being young, bright, energetic people, and you're just there with all the energy of a corpse, you know. So it was a very, very strange thing to happen to somebody at such a fairly young age in the grand scheme of things. Especially when you start to feel quite bitter about that other people have, you know, why didn't it happen to them? And I know obviously on a base level that sounds very negative, but almost you feel this strange kind of jealousy, and you think, why did it have to happen to me?
Well then.
The first thing my mother did when I was diagnosed was run off to the internet to research the hell out of the condition. Having lost her own father to cancer many years before, and having only recently, very recently, just lost her father-in-law to cancer. Yeah, so the 2 grandfathers of the family, you know, both to cancer, you know. And colitis is very distantly related to bowel cancer. You know, if you leave it unchecked, it can eventually sort of negatively progress into that, you know, that state. So she took the brunt of the visible concern and worry, you know. So that's not to say that my father and my sister were less worried, but they share that trait in our family, that they're very headstrong, and they take the you know, they instantly, you know, they go on the attack, or, you know, go on the defence. You know, whereas my mother, like me, I think I've inherited that trait from her. We get very emotional about things, you know, we worry about things almost straight away. So yeah, she started looking at all manner of holistic therapies and things, and you know, the word diet was cropping up a lot, so we had to start looking at that, you know, that sort of thing, and ways to manage the condition. You know, I'm not mincing my words when I say this, but there is a very strong chance that I could have passed away. I could have slipped into a coma. I could have actually died, because I was losing, when it was getting that bad, I was losing a lot of blood every day.
Do you ever think about, I have another person's blood? in my system? Does it felt weird after that?
To be honest, I didn't think about that so much at the time. Obviously, I was so grateful that this person who I'll never meet, I'll never know anything about, you know, they took the time to just go down one day and just donate, you know, pints and pints of the stuff. You know, so I thought about that a lot, and that strange connection that you have with someone when, as you say, when you have their blood in your veins. But
do you ever wonder what would happen if you actually met them, or if you knew who they were?
I think if I knew who they were, I'd probably just, you know, give them a hug and just say, you know, you've literally saved my life, person who I'll never meet or I'll never know properly. So even though obviously it's been going on for a long time now, the practice of giving blood, I'm happy to be an advocate for it. I'm happy to be able to stand up and say, without this, I might not be here, you know.
So, how is your life now?
Life now has a greater degree of normality to it. You know, it's so much better than it was during that difficult period. You know, there's a lot of things that everybody else my age progressed straight on to doing then, at that point in their lives, whereas I was held back because I was so ill. But now, life does feel normal again, after all that upheaval and all of that bewilderment and uncertainty. Life does feel normal. You know, I'm doing all these things that I wanted to do at the time, but didn't have the energy to do it, actually being far too ill. You know, all these little things that we all take for granted, like even just walking home through the park, you know, little things like that you can only do it now because you have your health back. And I only have my health back because they gave that blood in the first place, and I was able to have it. I want to be able to tell every person that has ever given blood that it mattered. You know, it mattered. Everything that they had to go through, all the nausea that they felt when actually doing it, all the time they had to take out from their working day to do it. It mattered because it saved a life, you know. Let's face it, if you need blood, then obviously you've not just got a cold, you know, you've got something quite serious, something potentially, you know, life-threatening. So I wish that I could, you know, meet that person who, you know, donated the pints that I had, so I could thank them, because that's probably the most gratitude I'll be able to show them. That's all I'll ever be able to do.